So today we're going to look at another way to make business cards. We've looked previously at using a software called Pixlr, which is a web-based software, but there's also another software that you can use. One of them that you may have already heard of is called Photoshop. Photoshop is a program created by Adobe, and they have a subscription service model. To purchase Photoshop, you will need to go to adobe.com and purchase from the Creative Cloud. The Creative Cloud right now has packages that range between $10 and $50 a month, and you can go month to month on some of their packages, and also 1-year contract subscription for other packages to receive an additional discount. So today what I wanted to look at was just kind of some ways to discover how to create a business card but not have to start from scratch. Many people want to design their own business cards, and there are lots of online ways to do that, but to get the really fine touches you do need to use a software like Photoshop. So here you can see that I went to Google and I searched for Photoshop business card template. The type of file that Photoshop uses is called a PSD. Just like if you were using a Word doc, it would be a .docx. You would find a Photoshop file to have a .psd on the end of it in your file structure. So I did find some, and I took the first example that Google gave us as a result. I found this wonderful article with lots of design ideas on business cards, and I chose a couple that I really liked, and that led me to this site, iShareArena.com. I gave up my contact information in exchange for downloading a couple of samples of business cards. You can see that I downloaded this one, and I'll try not to make you guys too dizzy here scrolling through, but there are lots of different examples on the web of business cards. If you find one that you like, use that as your template. So now we're going to go to our Photoshop. Photoshop, this is kind of what it looks like. We'll expand it out here to be able to show you more fully. And in Photoshop, this is what it looks like when a file is open. If there is no file open, you can go to File New or File Open. When you create a new file, there's a couple of things that you'll need to know if you're going to be printing this item that you're designing. If you're printing, resolution of 75 is a little bit on the low side. I typically recommend 150. Also, you'll want to name your file. I do like to name it business card with my name and the date on the end. If you put the date at the beginning, you can sort your files by date if you're keeping them in a folder and want to be able to know which one is the most recent. Also, it says RGB color here. If you're creating a new one that you're going to be printing, a business card, you want CMYK. The CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and black for K. And that allows the computer and the printer to know that these are printed colors and that it's going to need to mix the colors appropriately for your print. If you're using something for the web, if we were creating a social media post or a logo for a website, we would use RGB. Alright, well, let's take a look. We'll go ahead and cancel on this here because we already have a template. So this is a template I downloaded. I did not create this in any way. This site, again, gave me the free template in exchange for me subscribing to their newsletter. And all I have to do at this point, if I like this design, is do the changing of the information on this card. Now, there's a lot of different things and buttons and clicks, but don't be overwhelmed with all the things inside of Photoshop. Once you get to know what they are, you'll feel more comfortable, and once you try and use them, you'll be able to learn even more about how to manipulate this file. These blue lines are just guides. They're meant to be able to help you to line things up. Also to give you kind of a bleed edge so that if the cut is a little bit off, which often happens with business cards, that your design will still look really well placed. So you want to stay within the inner guidelines of the printer. If you download a template file from Vistaprint or from any of the other online printers, Overnight Prints, they will have these guidelines for you, either actually on the image so that you can design over the top of it, or in the PSD file themselves. So let's say I wanted to edit the phone number. All I need to know is I don't need to know which layer that phone number is on, but I do need to know that to go over here to the T, which is the horizontal type tool. That type tool creates something you might be familiar with. It's a little I-beam looking pointer that is similar to if you're using a Microsoft product like Excel or Word. Just simply type backspace, type other numbers. You might have a different number here, and you'll be able to edit your details. Now let's say that I like this blue stripe, but I don't like this blue triangle here. I can use the little eyes on the layers to toggle on and off different parts of this file to determine if I want to add something or not add something. I tried all of these layers and none of them were able to remove one of these triangles. So if I see, oh, here we go, here's a folder. So folders within layers can also have elements of design. And folders within folders, here we go. So let's say I just wanted to leave that off. That if a layer is not seen here, it will not print. So we have kind of a nice design. We update our information. We update our name in here and our title. And let's say we're ready to go to print for this business card. This is a one side of a business card. Printers will usually ask you to submit two files, one for back and one for front. There are other options for business cards, like if you want this triangle to be a little bit glossy and the rest of your card is matte, you'll have to have a spot print designer add that to your card before it goes to the printer. Or you'll have to get specifications from the printer on how they determine that to be spot printed. Sometimes you can just tell them over the phone, hey, the blue triangle, I'd like that to be spot printed so it's a little glossy, and have the rest of the card be matte, and they can do that for you. The other thing you'll want to know about business cards is that it's very common to add rounded corners. So make sure your design is going to look good with rounded corners. You wouldn't want to design color, like if this was totally blue, you wouldn't want to design the rounded corners, again, because the cutting feature that makes those corners can vary from time to time, so you want to give a solid color all the way through the corners so that they can cut where they may be. Let's say I wanted to add an image to this file. Again, I would do File, Open, and let's say I wanted to search for iStock, which is where I purchase a lot of my images. Let's see, what if I wanted, this really, this college student here, this college student image that I had earlier. So there's my college student, but where did my design go for my business card? Let's say this business card was for this student. I would take the top of this image and drag it down just a little bit, so now I can see both files. You can use window arrange and tile your different images in different ways on your screen. I definitely suggest playing around with that so that you don't lose your files. Now, this file only has one layer, and that's because I purchased this. It was a JPEG, it still is a JPEG. Once I scoot this layer over onto this page, now it's still JPEG, but it's a layer in my business card document. But it's definitely too big. This is not what I was expecting, so all I have to do is go up to Edit and then Free Transform. Oh, and I see a little line appeared. When you're still in the very first stages of importing a photographic image or any image for that matter, into a layer for Photoshop, that first few seconds is pretty critical to get it to a general size that you're going to be wanting it to be. You can adjust the size before you import it. That is also a good idea. But let's just say we are pretty sure we want this image to be on our business card. So we like that placement. We're going to kind of keep that placement. We're going to go like this. Now it's covering up a few elements. So if we take this layer and let's double click on it and name it student, because we know this is our student. If we move it back a couple of layers down, we're going to be able to get to the point where we're playing with it on that edge. Now we're still missing a lot of our elements in the square. We may not feel as design appropriate. So I really like this little eraser brush, but before I erase anything, I want to take my layer and drop it over this second icon with a little page turn. It's going to make me a second copy, so I can keep my original, turn it off, and then if anything I do to the second layer it doesn't work out, we can always go back to the original. So here's our flow and our opacity. Opacity makes something a little bit transparent, and we're going to say, you know, with this we don't want quite such a harsh edge on this business card. Maybe we make it a little more, transparent on the sides here. So you can kind of see it starts to fade. If you just do little bits at a time, if you do too much, it creates a harsh edge. But if you do little bits at a time and play with the flow and the opacity rate, you can kind of get a softer fade in. The other way to do this is not to manipulate the image itself, but to put a white box over the top and start really slowly erase the white box. So we want to make sure that our hard edge is kind of the place where most of the removing of the pixels is. And notice I go over the name and it's not even affecting it. That's because I have this photo selected. So now I'm going to go the other direction. I'm going to go to less opacity and less flow and be able to kind of soften it up here on the edges just a little bit. And you can change the size of your brush as well, or your eraser. So you can make it a little smaller when it's starting to get to a place where you have to be. Oh, I'm going to move my layers palette out of the way. I'm starting to get to a place where you need to be getting to the finer points. I'm going to go a little harder on this one because I want the background to be a little more. Okay. And there you go. You have a business card that you can say is highly customized for this individual. And we can go and file save as, save it with the date that we created it, and go ahead and send it to the printer. Now they may ask you for a PSD. They may also ask you for a JPEG or a PDF. So you'll want to send it to him. You can also flatten these layers by going to layer and flatten image, and that will be able to put it into a smaller file, so you're not sending out a gig file. It's maybe 5 megabytes or 10 megabytes. If you have a difficult time sending, you're using Gmail or Yahoo Mail or Hotmail, you can send larger files using Google Drive, or you can create a free account with Dropbox, or box.com, and those will be able to send a larger file and give a shared link to the printer. Thanks for joining me today, and good luck with your new business cards.